For landlords, by landlords. The Rent Perfect Podcast with David Pickron.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Rent Perfect Podcast. As always, joined by Scott Aubrey, who's always doing so well. Scott never has a bad day.
It's a choice, brother.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. Yeah, it's a choice.
Well, I tell you what, I've been reading about a lot of people nowadays that are having some bad days.
Yeah.
Yeah, not by choice.
Yeah.
It seems to be in the news, and a lot of the stories coming across our desk nowadays is about squatters.
Yep. And we're not talking squatty potty squatters. We're talking, you know.
Maybe they are squatty potty squatters.
That might be where it starts, but that doesn't where it ends, you know.
Well, I tell you what, I'm no attorney. I don't represent anybody. I'm not giving you legal advice. Every state has different, what they call squatters laws, which I think that most people don't even understand the term squatter. But you need to check with your state, your attorneys, go to your legal counsel, and let's talk about it, because different states, you know, have different rules for different, and it's really about the duration and how long someone stays on your property. And if they just walk into your property, they're a trespasser.
Right.
In a lot of states, if you stay over 30 days, right, you're now a tenant.
Yep.
And you're not a squatter until you've been there 5 to 7 years and paid the property taxes for that amount of time. So the reality is the definition of a squatter comes from in the old days when we would homestead, that you couldn't go homestead 1 million acres and say, I'm taking care of 1 million acres. I have stewardship over 1 million acres.
I own Kansas.
Yeah.
I got here first. I own Kansas.
And then on a corner, some guy's sitting there for 20 years, you don't even know about it. There's like, listen, if this guy's been sitting there for 20 years and you haven't recognized it, you're not really taking care of the land.
Yeah.
So keep in mind that we talk about squatters' rights and squatters' rights, but squatters' rights also were used when people would just abandon homes in the cities back in the day. No one knew who owned them or how to get a hold of them, and they pretty much said, hey, you go in, live there, fix it up, pay the property tax for 5, 7, 10 years, depending on the state. It's now your home, right? This is not the same as if you're staying in an Airbnb for 30 days, and 31 days now you're over that 30-day, and now all of a sudden you're now a long-term tenant.
Yep.
You're not necessarily by law a squatter.
Yeah. And procedurally getting them off the property, it's a completely different process.
You're a tenant who is overstaying your bounds.
Yep.
But I don't know that you follow the definition of a squatter. But that sounds good, right?
Yeah,
he's a squatter.
Right.
You know. So anyways, keep in mind you have trespassing. And if the duration is usually longer than 30 days, it's now a long-term tenant, right? And then if it's years down the road and you pay property taxes, squatter, just to let you know. Now, a lot of this derives from hotel motel law and landlord-tenant law, and usually differs by state. Usually that cutoff is 30 days, right? Are you just staying and sleeping here for a couple nights, a week, a weekend, right? Just borrowing the place. Yep. Or do you get property rights as a tenant to a place that you've stayed in over 30 days? So it's the duration, okay? So what do we do if we have somebody who's overstayed, or let's say someone who saw your property was abandoned and all of a sudden went in and just moved in?
Yeah.
Right?
And it happens all the time. Just go search squatting stories on the internet. It's quite entertaining.
Right. So what should you do? That's what we want to know.
Yeah.
What should we do?
Yep.
Number one, call the police and take the police over there. They might tell you this is a civil matter. This is not a criminal matter. But you document that you called the police on this date and you come over and try to knock on the door and try to have a conversation with the squatters.
Get them to voluntarily leave, right?
Okay.
That's the idea.
Let's hear their story.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I signed a lease. Or, oh, no, on Craigslist, I rented this place from a guy. I mean, get their story.
Right.
Because they didn't rent from you.
Right.
You didn't sign a lease. And the fact is that they weren't working with the real true owners of the property is a little bit their fault. They need to look at the county records themselves, or at least do a little due diligence to say, hey, you're the person who owns the property. But if if they are there, hello.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you document okay, I attempted to get them out under 30 days. They are trespassers.
Mm-hmm.
Go with that first, okay? If that does not happen, you need to go see an attorney. This is not one that you need to handle on your own. Don't go cheap here, okay? Because you can get in more trouble doing the wrong thing, okay? Now, some states, their eviction process is going to take 2, 3, 4 months, and some landlords, man, we can't afford that mortgage that keeps coming every month, every month, right? And 3 to 4 months worth of headache. But go to an attorney because you've got to do this right. Some states, unauthorized occupant, you can serve an immediate notice, you can be in court in 3 days, and you can have a constable out there within the week, okay? Because they're unauthorized, they're not supposed to be there. Those states make it very easy. I'm grateful that the properties I own in Arizona are that way.
Yeah, those are best case scenario states, right?
Best case scenarios. They're going to say in Arizona, oh, they are a tenant, but they're an unauthorized tenant.
Right.
And so you can get them out fairly quickly. Other states, it's going to take a little bit longer. But most true squatter laws is you have to live in a property 5, 7, 10 years, not hiding, out in the open.
Right. Conspicuous is the word they use.
It's not like we're secretly going to go own this property. This is truly used with abandoned property or property that people homesteaded back in the day. So make sure, number one, you call the police. You try to, and don't use the word squatter and don't use the word tenant when the police are out there. This person is breaking into my home. This person is trespassing into my home. Those are criminal statutes that you need to put in the police officer's head. If, oh, no, they've been living here a while, and I let them live in here for a while. I knew they were in here for a while, but they told me they would leave, and I trusted them. And so now I'm 45 days into this, and now all of a sudden a police officer can look at you and say, you've got a civil issue.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're saying breaking and entering, stealing, right? Trespassing, sell it.
Yeah.
Sell it.
Yeah.
Okay? If somebody is living in your property for 30 days and your property was vacant and you haven't checked on your property in 30 days, then shame on you.
Yeah.
If you have a property you're in the middle of turning, flipping, fixing, you should be there often. Heck, put some cameras on the place. They're cheap nowadays. Throw some cameras up, put some motion sensors,
Hire a neighbor kid to call you every couple of days to tell you nobody's in the house.
Yeah.
Anything, right?
We
Anything.
have to look over our properties, and not let them sit there time after time.
I mean, especially in some of these cities that are having issues where they've got advocacy groups who are now almost finding these homes and putting people into them, right? Which I've been reading some stories about that, which is disturbing.
Yes. So I'm out on a National RIA cruise for a week. In one of my units, a tenant moved out. Okay, hid the key. When the minute I got home, I went over there. She's got the windows open because she wants to air out the place. So it sat there for 2 days, locked up, but with windows wide open.
Yeah.
I walk into the living room to inspect it, right? And there's an overwhelming smell of marijuana. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys were smoking in my place, and now, carpet and paint But as I get to the back of the house, I'm not picking up the smell anymore. I'm like, well, why would they just be smoking in the front room by the door, right? But not in the kitchen, back patio? It seemed bizarre to me.
Yeah. Well,
they left this window open, so somebody over the wall or whatever is toking up a good one the other day, and it's just blowing right into the window. So I don't see them. I don't know that's the case. So I get home and I text my tenant. I'm like, hey, listen, the property looked good, but were you guys vaping or smoking in there? I've got an overwhelming smell of marijuana. She's like, Dave, we don't do that stuff. I promise you, we don't do drugs at all. We've never done drugs at all. So all I could think is she left the window open, and it's just coming in from
a little secondhand toke.
But who says they don't jump through the window?
Sure. They may have been sitting there when they heard the door open and they jumped out. Who knows, right?
So don't leave your properties unsecured like that. I got a little bit on her, and wasn't too happy that my property was exposed like that for situations like this, vandalism. People in certain neighborhoods are watching, and they're knowing when your people are moving out. They know when it's vacant. go ask insurance companies. They don't want to cover homes that are vacant because they know what happened in there. So
Yeah.
just watch your properties if they're vacant. Put some cameras in there. And anything else to add, Scott? Anything I missed?
No, just be careful.
Just be careful. And until next time, continue to rent perfect.